What's going on, everybody? You are watching Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, I want to do a deep dive into all of the Vikings quarterback options this offseason and putting them into different buckets. Now, I do think there are three different buckets of Vikings quarterback options. I think you have the no doubt starters, where if the Vikings acquire this quarterback, there is no question that they are the starter for all 17 games. That puts JJ McCarthy into a backup role. And then I think the second bucket is, hey, let's just say we bring in X quarterback. They're competing with JJ McCarthy during training camp, and you just let the best man win. And then you have the veteran backup option where it's JJ McCarthy. He is the starter. He is no doubt going to be the guy that they are riding with for the 2026 season, but you do have a veteran backup just in case the injury bug catches back up to JJ McCarthy next season. But you guys make a prediction for me. Who will be QB1 for your Minnesota Vikings next season? Drop that quarterback's name down below in the comment section. Curious to see what you guys got to say. All right, let's start off with the first quarterback bucket here. And this is going to be the no doubt starters. Again, these are the guys the Vikings could bring in, and they are the no doubt starter for next season. We're going to start off with a polarizing choice here, that being Juicy Aaron Rodgers. Let's talk about him. So Aaron Rodgers, he was connected to the Minnesota Vikings recently by Adam Schefter. He was doing a podcast, and he just threw out the idea that the Vikings could possibly pick up the phone and have some interest in Aaron Rodgers. Now, I know immediately a lot of people are saying, oh, there's no chance I want Aaron Rodgers to be the starting quarterback next season. I have honestly became more open to the idea. And I think what intrigues me so much about Aaron Rodgers is that if you think about this Vikings team, they will probably have a top 5 defense next season. So if you have a top 5 defense, and I think the Vikings will have a better offensive line than they have in years past, so a good offensive line, good weapons, you still have a really good coaching staff, and you just ask Aaron Rodgers, who is an all-time great talent, to just kind of manage the football game, there would be no doubt in my mind. If the Vikings go out there and get Rodgers, they will be a playoff team next season. You win 9 games with JJ McCarthy and Max Brosmer. Even Rodgers at 42 years old, I still think you could be successful. And also, I don't think Rodgers has played his last really good season in the NFL, because this past season with the Pittsburgh Steelers obviously wasn't his best. And I do want to compare it back to 2019, where Tom Brady, his last year in New England. Now, Brady this year was 42 years old. Rodgers this past season was 42 years old, and both of them put up pretty similar numbers. But the key similarity between both these seasons is Rodgers wasn't working with much at the wide receiver position. DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, pretty much a solid wide receiver, more of a wide receiver 2 in DK, and a whole bunch of nothing, very similar to what Tom Brady was working with in New England. Now, a lot of good names on this list, like Jacoby Myers, Mohamed Sanu, Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman, but it still wasn't a top-tier wide receiver room in the National Football League. So Brady was working with this in 2019, and he goes to Tampa in 2020, and he has a very solid season. Won the Super Bowl this year. Big-time throw percentage. He was 4th in the league. Turnover-worthy play percentage. He was 1st in the league there. Like, he had a fantastic season. So if Rodgers, if he would come to the Minnesota Vikings, get that improved wide receiver room, I think we could see Rodgers maybe not have a similar season, or maybe not have the exact season to what Brady had in Tampa Bay in 2020, but it could no doubt be similar. So I would be a little more interested in Aaron Rodgers than I think most Vikings fans. Now, a guy who I've kind of cooled on a little bit, Kyler Murray, I think he's sounding a lot better on paper, but you start looking at a lot of the advanced numbers here, and specifically him throwing the ball down to the field over the last 3 seasons. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's 10-plus yards down the field, 15-plus yards, 20-plus yards. He's been one of the worst down-the-field throwers in the National Football League. Now, you could make the argument a lot of that has to do with him losing DeAndre Hopkins, has been able to find a connection with a guy like Michael Wilson or Marvin Harrison. But I think Kyler Murray is only an option for the Minnesota Vikings if he ends up getting cut. Like, I don't think there is any chance in the world that the Vikings pick up the phone and give up any sort of draft capital for Kyler Murray just because of the contract. I mean, the guy still owes $60 million over the next 2 seasons. So I don't think he's that likely of an option. Then you got a guy like Derek Carr, he's came out and said that he will unretire if he's in the right situation, wants to play with a Super Bowl contender. I would have pretty strong feelings that he views Minnesota as a Super Bowl contender, and he's got a ton of connections in the organization. Jordan Traylor, the Vikings assistant offensive coordinator, he spent time with him in New Orleans. Frank Smith, the Vikings assistant head coach, spent time with Carr when he was back in Las Vegas as their tight ends coach. So he has connections with the organization, knows Kevin O'Connell, would probably love to come play with Justin Jefferson, the best wideout in the league. But I don't think he is too likely. It would just kind of be out of nowhere if Carr actually does end up being the starter for the Vikings next season. But if they are going to acquire him, like, there is no doubt that he is the starter for all 17 games. And obviously you got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, unlikely. Bengals would keep him, no doubt, as a starter. So don't need to spend too much time on him. But again, if he is somewhat or somehow available, the Vikings, you throw 2-3 first-round picks to Joe Burrow. But again, unlikely there. But out of all those options, I think Aaron Rodgers would make the most sense, because Aaron Rodgers, I mean, that is a guy who obviously he would be polarizing, but he really could follow the same career path as Brett Favre, and maybe the Vikings would be a lot more successful. But I'm sure you guys will have a lot of thoughts in the comment section on that. So we'll dive into the rest of QB targets here in just a second, but I need to tell you about today's presenting sponsor, and it's Harry's, a shaving company, and their razors are absolutely awesome. And for a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. And I have used old razors in the past, and they always irritate my neck, and that's not the case at Harry's. And also, some razors are still flimsy, still overpriced, and feel like they're still stuck in 2008. But when I shaved with Harry's Plus for the first time, I was completely blown away, mainly because it is Harry's heaviest handle ever. It's made from metal, never plastic, and designed to fit comfortably in your hand. And the heavier handle means more control and a luxe feel. Harry's doesn't just make razors, they got a full line of grooming essentials, from shave gel to deodorant to body wash, all thoughtfully made and priced to stock up. All of Harry's blades and grooming products can be delivered straight to your door, so set your preferred schedule and never run out of blades again. So for a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. This set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head to harrys.com/chat to claim this offer. And after you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you here at Vikings Now by Chat Sports. All right, so the second quarterback bucket. If the Vikings can't land the no-doubt starter, they'll just go with the guy that can compete with JJ McCarthy in a good old-fashioned quarterback battle. Now, I do think, though, if you had to ask Kevin O'Connell, like, hey, which bucket are you going to target the most? Like, I think it's starting at the top. Like, I think they're going to try to go get that no-doubt starter. Then if they can't land any of those guys, then I think it shifts to the guys that you could battle with JJ McCarthy during training camp. And the first guy would be Mac Jones. But the thing about Mac Jones that makes no sense at all and why his fit with the Vikings doesn't make sense is because you trade for Mac Jones, you're going to have to give up a second-round pick. Are you trading for a quarterback and giving up a second-round pick if they aren't the no-doubt starter? No, you're not. So Mac Jones, I don't think he's too likely. Doesn't really make too much sense to me. Now, maybe Mac Jones should be in the no-doubt starter bucket, but I just don't put him in that quality of quarterback. Now, number 2 here, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins going to be released by the Atlanta Falcons. And I will tell you this, I will lose my mind if Kirk Cousins is on the Vikings. I think, in a sense, he makes sense as the backup quarterback, a veteran guy who's played a lot of football. But I think if you bring in Kirk Cousins, he'll end up starting. And we've already gone down the Kirk Cousins route. When Kirk was in his prime, we couldn't win with him. So why would we win with him after a torn Achilles, entering his age 38 season? Doesn't make too much sense there. That just screams one and done in the playoffs. You bring in Kirk. Another guy here, Geno Smith, bring him in to compete with JJ McCarthy. I think schematically, Geno Smith probably makes the most sense out of all of these guys. I think Geno probably has the most left in the tank out of all of these guys because, even though last year with the Raiders, you can pretty much throw that film out the window. I mean, they had an awful offensive line. They had a horrible play caller. They couldn't run the football. They had no wide receivers. Brock Bowers was hurt for the majority of the season. So Geno Smith, I still think he would play some good football with this team, but he's just not that likable of a person. I don't think the culture would match with Geno Smith and who he is as a person, so I wouldn't have any interest there. Now, Malik Willis, if this was a different situation and maybe Malik Willis was signing a 2-year, $10 million contract, 2-year, $20 million contract, sign me up for Malik Willis. But he's going to sign a 2-year, $45, $50 million deal, and I think he's going to want to go somewhere where he is the no-doubt starter, so I don't really think he makes too much sense for the Vikings as well. Now you could go down this route, which is just a classic veteran backup quarterback option. And in this bucket, you're going with guys where it's like, hey, your job is to back up JJ McCarthy, be that mentor for him, but 9 is our starter for all 17 games. And I think the best option here would be Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco been around the block, obviously won a Super Bowl, was unbelievable for the Baltimore Ravens, and actually played some good football this past season for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, all of these guys, you would hope if they do have to step in for 2 to 4 weeks potentially that they can man the ship and you can win some playoff or win some games with them. So Flacco would probably be my number one choice. Marcus Mariota, he's done great work with Jaden Daniels in Washington. He's a great locker room guy. His teammates and his coaches rave about him, and I think he would be a solid option as well. But if you bring in Marcus Mariota, it's Mariota, JJ McCarthy. I mean, it's a pretty uninspiring quarterback room, and the same can be said about Joe Flacco and JJ. And same with our third guy here, Andy Dalton. Now, apparently the Panthers are fielding trade calls on Dalton, and Dalton would be a very good veteran. Like, he would be a great voice in the ear of JJ McCarthy. But, again, all three of these guys, like, if you roll into this next season with Flacco, Mariota, Dalton, combined with JJ McCarthy, what's a guy like Justin Jefferson thinking? What's a guy like Jordan Addison thinking? What's a guy like Brian Flores thinking, where it's like, that's our quarterback room? Like, those are the guys we're going with. And I thought what was so interesting, we'll do a full show on this here in the future. Rob Brzezinski, he said, we just need a baseline level of quarterback play to be successful. We're not talking about J.J. McCarthy being a top 10 quarterback. We're not talking about him even being top 15. They just expected McCarthy to be the 25th, 20th best quarterback in the league last year. And they didn't get that from him. And KOC's talking about how this is a big offseason for JJ. He understands this. So, like, all these reports coming out and just reading the tea leaves, I think the Vikings are going to try to get a different starter for next season. That's why you start thinking about it a lot more. What do they want? They want an accurate quarterback who has a lot of experience, who can command the locker room. That's Aaron Rodgers. And I don't know. It's just so crazy how thoughts can change throughout this offseason. But now I'm starting to be a little more warmed up to the idea of Aaron Rodgers being the Vikings quarterback. But we'll see what happens. Anyways, if you guys could, hit that subscribe button on your way out. Keep you guys posted with all the latest around your Minnesota Vikings. Catch you guys next time. Let's go Vikes.